This conference will now be recorded.
All right. Good morning, everybody. We do have a quorum. It is 9:34 a.m. Wednesday, September 7th, and I will call this meeting to order. The Killeen-Temple MPO Technical Advisory Committee meeting to order. I will open for public comment. Is there anybody in person or on the line that wishes to address the advisory committee? Anybody online, Hope?
Any comments?
Thank you. All right. Moving right along, agenda item 3, staff update. This is pages 6 through 7. If you're looking on the packet, we also have the information on the screen and being shared virtually. So our upcoming KTMPO meetings are listed on the screen through September through November. All of these meetings are scheduled for 9:30 a.m. here at the SITCOG offices in Belton. Other updates, we have a new staff member, Anita Jenkins. He actually just came to the KTMPO staff. She was, prior to coming over here, she was part of the aging team. She's back there in the back. She'll be working on some of our internal plans and getting our web presence a little more. So you may see some correspondence from her moving forward. Our federal certification review, we are still waiting on Federal Highways preliminary report on that. That was supposed to be, we were supposed to receive that in 60 days following. I've now been told it'll be probably sometime in October that we will receive that report from Federal Highways. Our officer elections for the policy board are scheduled for the this month's policy board meeting. If you have elected officials that are interested in serving, please have them reach out to me. Our Safe Streets and Roads for All match formula. The work group for that formula, the 4 members of that group met on August 12th to discuss ideas for how to develop the match. We're following up on some of the comments that we received during that meeting. I know Jason Deckman was there. I don't know if you'd like to speak to that meeting at all, but there were a couple of different proposals. We're waiting on a consensus on how the group as a whole would like to move forward before reporting that to the TAC or the policy board. The Protect program, James is going to touch on that here in a minute. Greenhouse gas performance measures. These are a new performance measure that was slated to come out later this year, and we were supposed to have these measures in place by October. The federal rules for this program or performance measures have not even been released yet. So at the national MPO level, the AMPO policy board, we met last week to discuss the greenhouse gas performance measures. There was a lot of discussion on pushing those to the year 2024 to allow time for the guidance to be issued for that, as well as for some additional data to be made available, because we really don't know what the data is going to look like for those. So coming up in the next couple of years, we'll have some additional performance measures, and we don't really know what that's going to look like yet.
You're right.
Yes.
Would that tie in? I know we've been having a discussion with your staff that our public works about their quality monitor. Would that tie into some of the TCQ air monitors?
So at this point, there are 2 different programs
Right.
that really contradict each other. So they're trying to work through how that looks in the long run.
Good luck.
The 2023 UTP passed the Transportation Commission meeting on August. I'm sure everybody in here saw it on the news. I've done a little slideshow just to kind of go over the 2023 UTP, some high level parts of it. I don't have a copy of the slideshow in front of me, but if you go to the next slide, and we'll release this slideshow as well. Of course, the UTP is the 10-year plan that the state uses to develop transportation projects. It's got 12 categories of funding, with each one addressing different types of work. And the benefits of the UTP as listed in the UTP are transparency, accountability, financial responsibility, coordination with stakeholders across the state. There are performance-based decision-making efforts that go into this, and this is to ensure efficient use of resources. Listed on the screen are the 12 categories. The highlight categories are typically what we see when dealing with the NPO, as we work with TxDOT. For the 2023 UTP categories 2 and 4, got approximately almost $23 billion. For the KTMPO region, it looks like we got about 212 million. That's about 1%, a little less than the state total. Next slide. And then I've got categories 7 and 9 on the screen. Those are the totals for the 2023 UTP in those categories. And then I've got KTMPO's regional allocation listed on there as well. Next slide. And these next slides are just trend graphs. So you'll see, of course, the 2023 is about $85 billion, up from the 74 billion in the last one. It's pretty constant up until 2023, where there's an influx of about $10 billion. Next slide, and this is the trend for categories 2 through 4 from 2018 to 2022. Next slide, and this is our KTMPO historical funding overview. Beginning in 2018, of course, we were at 59 million. Now we're up to 212 million. And that's pretty good increase. Category 7 and 9, this of course again is statewide. The category 7 are the blue lines, category 9 are the red. Next slide, and then for KTMPO, category 7 is blue and category 9 is red again. And this just shows our trend. Next slide. So what does it actually mean for us? So, you know, over the course of the next 10 years, there's an increase of about $10 billion in transportation. So more transportation projects in our region may be funded. I'm not saying that they will. We also have to take into account, you know, the additional considerations of inflation and some of the other prioritization that the state may have on how those funds are spent. But with that, I'll open it up to any questions on the UTP. Okay, and then moving right along in the staff update. Here we go. We're moving. Now we're good. Oh, Chris, go. All right. Moving right along with the staff update. The fiscal year 23 statewide transportation alternatives call for project. James will touch on that in a minute. And then the possible tour of the Ellis A&M campus on November 9th. Everybody should have seen an email from me about that. I know I originally had discussed the 8th or the 9th. It was brought to my attention that the 8th was, of course, election day. So many people may not be able to or willing to travel to the Rellis campus. So a date change to the 9th was made, and I sent out a feeler to see how many people would be interested in going on that tour. I've received about 4 responses. If you are interested in going, please let me know so I can get that tour scheduled and on their books. Next slide. The air quality readings were 65 and 67 parts per billion. And with that, I'll let James touch on the two areas he was going to, the protect and the TA call for projects.
Yeah, 3 actually, right? So there's the protect program, which I'll send out a fact sheet in my follow-up, but that's just a new program focused on resiliency from USDOT. I believe it's formula-based, but they're still figuring out what that looks like and how it's going to be distributed, I think. Also want to mention the CRISI program, which is Federal Railroad Administration for focused on rail infrastructure and safety. Local governments are eligible to apply. I believe that was released last week with the October deadline.
Do you know if there's a match on that project?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I can look it up. And then last program is the TxDOT TA call for projects. They've been having webinars. There's a last one today, but if you missed any of them, I believe they record them. And if you want more information, staff can get you in touch with the bicycle folks. They would love to help you out with that program, which opens next month. And it's open to, they've expanded eligibility this year, so there's a lot more things you can apply for, and there's no limitations on which communities can or cannot apply. Last thing I want to mention that's not on here is the FY 23-26 TIP was opened a couple weeks ago, and so all of our projects are now in there, and that is with TxDOT and FHWA for review. I don't have a timeline on when they will approve it, but they're in the process, so I would say within two or so months we should have approval of all those, and we'll have a new TIP. That's all I have, unless there's any questions.
All right. Any questions on the staff update? Anybody online have any questions? All right, well, if you do have questions afterward, feel free to reach out to that. All right, moving right along to agenda item 4, which is regarding approval of the minutes from the August 3rd, 2022 meeting. Are there any corrections, revisions, or any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion. I have a motion.
Second.
And a second. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, agenda item 5 is a discussion and action item regarding the KTMPO TAC and Policy Board meeting schedule for fiscal year 2023. As you'll see on the screen, these are the proposed dates for the next year's KTMPO TAC and Policy Board meetings. Some of these dates, they're typically the first and third Wednesday of the month. I believe we had to change the dates on possibly 2 months because of holidays and other conferences or things we may have to attend. The action needed on this is to consider recommending approval of this TAC and Policy Board meeting for schedule for the FY 2023 meeting year. If any of these dates need to change, of course, as we have in the past, we will reach out to all the members and let them know. The only reason these would really change is if something were to come up we were unaware of, national conferences, state conferences, or state trainings that we may need to attend. Any questions on the calendar? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. Okay. I have a motion. Second. Who second? Any further discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right, that motion carries. All right, agenda item 6 is a discussion and action item regarding resolution 2022-09, supporting October 2022 as Walk to School Month and October 12th, 2022 as Walk to School Day. It's pages 18 through 19 in your packet, and information will be on the screen. James?
Thanks, Ryan. This is something we bring before TAC and Policy Board each year. We want to support walking and biking, and there's a people have been trying to encourage walking to school since 1997. I don't think anything in the resolution has changed other than the date. I know it says, well, the dates on the dates in the resolution are correct. On the presentation, they're a little bit wrong. And if there's anything that communities are doing to encourage walking or biking, or of that staff can support, please let us know. I know that some people do things, but just a resolution we want to bring before TAC and Policy Board for approval.
Any questions on the resolution? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
I have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any other questions? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That motion carries. All right, agenda item 7 is a discussion and action item regarding resolution 2022-10, providing guidance on addressing KTMPO project inflation requests. James is going to speak to this. I know at one of our previous meetings, it was brought up that maybe we should develop some type of plan. When we were going through the process for the city of Nolanville's inflation request, after looking at the information on what we're allowed to do in the system administratively, we felt it may be more beneficial to do a resolution. With that, the resolution's in your packet, but I'll let James speak more to that.
Yes, thanks, Ryan. So, a couple months ago, Nolanville requested additional funding for inflation, and we know that this is affecting all of our projects. And the main point of the resolution is it just specifies what the restrictions on administrative modifications to projects in the STIP are from TxDOT, and that's if a change in construction costs in the federal cost share of is less than 1.5 million or less than 50% of the original amount, that constitutes an administrative modification. And that's important because staff doesn't have to go through a whole public hearing, public comment period type amendment process. We can go into the system and change those numbers and then notify TxDOT of the dollar amount change. So it's a lot quicker. If construction amounts are above that dollar amount or the percentage, then we would be required to go through the formal process, which involves staff and policy board approval, and then a public hearing, and that's usually a 2-month deal. So more just clarifying, here's what the rules are, and then as staff, we want to help out as much as possible, and if there is funding available, we want to be able to accommodate requests as they fall within the guidelines. Anything else, Ryan?
I think that's about it. Like James said, it's just clarifying what we're able to do through the amendment process administratively without having to bring it to the board. Of course, we would report any of those administrative amendments. And any amendment would only be made if funds were available. Of course, we're not going to take funds from one project and put it to another. But as the requests come, if we have the dollars available, instead of going through the official, formal process, it's much more streamlined if we were allowed to administratively, and we'd like to support in doing that.
Where do the funds come from?
They would be funds that we have allocated to the region. Much like we had the funds available for Nolanville just because we had excess, but we have additional cash funds and 9 funds that, typically we try to spend every dollar of that. Sometimes we have a little bit that's left over, and that's kind of what we would be looking at using this for.
So if you run out of those funds,
Then we wouldn't be able to do it.
and then we have, I'm just throwing out an example, say we have all these projects ready to go. Are they small or just burden be forced from the city?
Well, if we were unable to do Nolanville's project, just this conversation for the fruit. If we didn't have the money available, we wouldn't be able to give it anyways, because we can't just take it from another project. It's already been allocated funds. So I think we'd have to work closely with the city to see if there were other funds possibly available to remedy that, either TxDOT or see how we can make that work. But I know that project may not have even gone forward if we weren't able to do that. And I think that's what you're referring to. Some of those projects may stall and not even be able to move forward without that.
based on what I'm seeing with all our projects, I think it's go forward with what you're proposing, and I'm not saying we should or shouldn't. I'm saying I don't see a log jam in the future and everything is stalled, and then we don't end up spending funds because the differences are too great. You're not wanting to fund, say, lower ranking projects to fund the higher ranking projects.
Now, I think this would have to be a conversation. If we run out of money, we would have to bring that to the policy board or see prior to bringing it to the policy board or the TAC, seeing what other options may be available to mitigate that instance.
This may be in your seed corn, but is it possible to then program funds from future years? We're out of 2022, 23 catch-up, but we know we've got X amount of dollars from 24. Can we jump forward? Is that legal and is it wise?
So when we program, we usually look at the full TIP period. So if there's funding available, that's for a 4-year window. If there's not funding available, that's because it's all been allocated. And I think to what Victor was saying, if we run, the project needs more funding and there isn't any available, the conversation first would be, hey, we have a 2026 project, we're in 2024, can some of that money be shifted?
Right.
And then in additional fiscal year money will 2027, 2028 will come on and can cover the 2026. It just would mean less overall projects.
Right, and that's why you said the seed corn, because we're going to get to 27 and have 5 more projects. We want to, we may shoot ourselves in the foot.
Going back to what you're asking too, Jason, I'm not speaking for TPP division, but from what I've heard around the state, and I've already addressed it with as well as the statewide, there are some issues with Cat 5 and Cat 7 funds being spent. Of course, we'll have Cat 5, Cat 7, and I think we're in good shape as an NPO. But if we were wanting to over-program because other NPOs are not able to fulfill what they're saying, they may work with us and let us bring in future dollars for future years of Cat 7, but then knowing that we have to want to diet on Cat 7. So
Again, the question is, how urgent is this right now? At what cost down the road? And the answer may be, this one's worth it. And just, I think it's going to depend on the project. It's probably going to depend on the actual dollar amount.
in my opinion, I've said this before too, is that not just the super inflation we're seeing right now, but just basic regular inflation that we've always been seeing. The sooner you can let a project, the more bang for your buck you get. Right. True. If they would snap their fingers and let us spend our whole senior allocation next year, that would be the thing to do, because you might not be able to build anything in the next 9 years, but you get way more construction that first year.
So yeah, there are going to be, multiple different factors taken into account when making adjustments. This kind of, like I said, it streamlines the process for what we can do administratively if funds are available. For anything that we can't do or the funds aren't available, of course, we have to have a conversation with y'all and the policy board to see what direction there is, unless we come up with a solution that we can just report to everybody.
So the flip side of that would be to under allocate funding. What does that do to?
I think that opens us up for like what Victor was saying, possibly, and maybe I'm not seeing it right, but if we under program we used to lose Cat 7, we don't anymore. For Cat 9, if we under programmed and didn't use it all, then there's the potential, maybe oversight, maybe lack of projects, which I don't see in our region, but that we would end up turning that money in at the end of, what is it, it's a 4-year cycle that we lose some. I've seen NPOs in the state lose all kinds of Cat 9 money. just because they don't have the projects to fulfill that type of project. So I think under programming is very dangerous. Over programming may be a better option if we have if we're able to do so.
Well, the issue I see with overprogramming, kind of carrying that out, is there's some entity out there is planning a project, and at the local level, they're kind of budgeting to that point of where they're committing, those funds and those resources to that project. So we pull that, then that puts them under some legal obligations to, I'm not gonna say it the right way, but get rid of some funding that they've got programmed, projected to be budgeted. It puts the local entities kind of in a bind.
If we over program.
If you overprogram, with the understanding that at some point you're planning on, pulling that funding to.
Well, and then I think to your case, maybe I don't see it right, is if you under program, and then you have funds for the locals, and they don't have the match for it because they haven't budgeted. They're kind of in the same thing.
Yeah, somebody's scrambling somewhere.
Right.
If you overprogram, and we'll keep using Oakville, for example. How much money did you spend on design service, environmental, geotech surveying? Only to be told, sorry, we're pulling your construction money. And those plans are on the shelf. Now, maybe it's not completely wasted money. A couple years down the road, money, yeah. We pull the plans out, they're going to need to be revised. You're going to spend more money on design, environmental, et cetera, right away. I mean, Temple's had to deal with that. Stuff was built up and we exercised it to make we damage out structures that had we bought that right away years back. We had the conversation yesterday about right now there's a lot that would make sense. But what happens is there's nothing stopping the owner from pulling the permit and building on that lot right now. That would have impacts on other possible development. So if we spend that and make money now, it'd be 1 month. If we can't, and we do, and we bought it, now we don't have the money for the project, what have we got? So yeah, there's very solid dollar amounts being spent in anticipation of that construction.
And just so everybody knows, when we looked at drafting this resolution, we looked at the administrative rules as a whole. What we can do as staff. There's nothing saying that the policy board may say, well, we don't want 50%. We want you to go through the process for anything over 30%. It's ultimately up to the TAC and the policy board how we proceed. But this was our draft to kind of address the inflation issue as it stands now. Like I said, just allow staff really to streamline those requests as they come in, should funding be available. If it exceeds this, then we have to look at other options or work with the local jurisdiction or bring it to policy board and TAC for an official to go through the formal process of making an amendment. So. Any other questions, thoughts on the resolution?
Just on the wording itself, under furthermore, it says that the aforementioned shall be approved by KTMPO. Should that read shall be considered for approval? Is it almost?
Oh, yeah, that's.
It sounds to me like
The board has to do it.
Yeah, it has to do it. I mean, a shall is a shall.
Yeah,
So I would ask that it be shall be considered.
I agree.
project talking about moving forward. You mentioned additional federal funding. James mentioned the amended tip out there submitted. When is the next opportunity for us to rank projects? The priority of projects is going to stand. What it is what it is right now. When is the next opportunity to evaluate that in relation to the additional infusion of money?
Correct me if I'm wrong, James. We've had multiple discussions on the next project's call, prioritization process. And I think we were talking about possibly starting the scoring methodology mid next year and then opening for projects once that process is done. So it'd probably be closer to the end of next year when that process would be complete. Any other questions, comments, discussion? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve resolution 2022-18.
That's with the changes?
Yes, sir.
A motion and a second to recommend approval of the resolution with the requested changes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. Agenda item 8 is a discussion item. This is a presentation on the 2022 signalization study findings. This was done, when was it, Big James?
Earlier in spring, April. We have introduced Lance was our project manager on this before. He did a great job. He's here to just give a little presentation because we haven't done that on the findings from the study and some of the results.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll try to keep it brief, but cover what we did and what some of our findings were. So, yeah, once again, Lance Ballard with Killeen-Temple. I've spoken to some of you, worked with some of you on this project. We took a look at all of the signalization, traffic signalization in the region, because, traffic congestion and safety are costly problems. When you're driving between jurisdictional boundaries as a driver or as a traveler, by whatever mode you're taking, you expect it to be kind of a seamless transition between those, but you're not thinking about entering one city and leaving another. But there's those jurisdictional boundaries can create disconnects, and MPOs are becoming more and more active in the traffic signal space across the country. And so we went and took a look to see how KTMPO could begin to look into that matter a bit more, understand what are the needs of all of the agencies who own, maintain, and operate traffic signals, and just what's the current state of things before kind of launching in and wanting to look into helping in the future. So within the region, there's a little over 300 traffic signals. Cities of Killeen-Temple maintain and operate their own traffic signals. TxDOT Waco District is another large player. Brownwood District has 1 or 2 on the west side, and then Port Hood actually has quite a few as well, and we spoke with them too. We looked at best practices research. So what's the current state of the industry and how everyone's approaching everything. Surveyed each of the agencies, kind of assessed where they were, what their needs were, and then provided recommendations in all the categories that you see at the right. And we'll go through each of these briefly. I'll spend the most time talking about policy and programs, if that makes sense with the MPO. So FHWA recommends kind of at the highest level having a regional concept for transportation operations plan, RCTO, which is really just a larger umbrella level sort of look at a region of what do we want to be pursuing and doing in terms of traffic operations. And then many NPOs, or some NPOs now, are also creating regional traffic signal operations programs where they're going in and having programs to either do signal retiming, help move upgrades and things forward that are that can cross those jurisdictional boundaries. North Central Texas COG is a great example of this. They have a large signal retiming program throughout their throughout the DFW area. And then at the agency level, for those that own and operate traffic signals, FXW recommends having a traffic signal program management plan, which is really just planning for the operations and maintenance of their things, just having a formal plan. What are the goals? What do we want to be doing? Have that plan and programmed out. In reality, though, few agencies across the country have these, but they are very helpful when they do. So currently, KTMPO in the congestion management plan, traffic signal optimization, transit signal priority, and responsive traffic transportation systems are noted as goals within that system. So looking at all of that, we created 5 recommendations under policy and programs. First is creating that regional concept for transportation operations plan for the region, adopting operational performance measures to the CMP, so not just the goals of optimizing traffic signals, but beginning to use performance measures to track those and help understand what areas of the region are performing well and not performing as well. Also creating a regional committee of all of the folks that are operating in this space, the traffic engineers, traffic signal technicians, and supervisors, so that they're all on the same page. They all have good coordination between each other and can speak to these issues. Our regional traffic signal operations program would help cross those jurisdictional boundaries for things like traffic signal retiming and some other recommendations I'll talk about later. And then just helping to assist agencies in creating those signal programming. So when we look at maintenance, preventative maintenance is critical. Many agencies have on-call contractors for some heavy lifting and specialized equipment in the event of emergency or some unexpected thing. And then asset management is critical now, and you see a lot of movement in that space for all agencies. So across the board, preventative maintenance was pretty good within the region, but there was a desire to better track work activities and better have signal assets and transportation-related assets integrated into their asset management systems. A lot of asset management is, more general city infrastructure based, and there's some improvement that could be seen there. And so one that we've seen be helpful in other locations is having an emergency resource sharing MOU. So an agreement between the agencies that, hey, in the event of emergency, we can fire out a quick email, text, or just know that we can assist each other in those instances and not worry about, hey, I'm within this city and I'm touching text.stuff or vice versa. And all of that is in place so that you can act quickly in response to an emergency. Looking at operations and safety, really the gold standard is to have all of your traffic signals connected to a traffic management center with an advanced traffic management system, working with all of those signals, sending you alerts, allowing you to operate those signals in a better way. Signal retiming programs and using signal performance measures to evaluate the performance of all those signals. Most of the signals in the region are connected to small traffic management centers. There's not really any standard program retiming programs. And there's a desire to use signal performance measures within the region, but not many are using them yet, citing a lack of staff to do so, and just the need to have the infrastructure in place to either purchase or install the equipment to gather that data. So if you had that regional RTSLP, we could evaluate and improve operations. We could look at CMP segments and evaluate performance measures across each of those, and that would help identify corridors that would be the most in need of retiming on an annual basis, and just really create a regular process to evaluate congestion data and also safety data as well. We're assisting KTMPO in creating the regional transportation data and statistics dashboard that's going to pull in a lot of safety data as well, and that could be a great tool to pull in and just evaluate annually to understand where hotspots are, where are places that need to be addressed. And then establish some goals to use signal performance measures within the city. Equipment, we already talked about HMS systems and the TMC. Flashing yellow arrows are a known safety improvement and now the national standard for left turn treatments that are protected premises. Battery backup systems provide power in the event of a power source outage, creating a much higher level of safety at an intersection rather than a dark signal. And probe-based performance data really is where most of the things are going. You see a lot less infrastructure in the field trying to gather travel time information and more being able to get it from connected vehicle applications or third-party data providers. So FYA deployment across the region varies a little bit. Not everyone is fully rolled out. Some agencies are. There's not a lot of battery backup systems. So really prioritizing equipment upgrades that improve safety are really kind of the main recommendation we have in this area. That includes all the things that we mentioned, as well as there were cited desires to improve pedestrian signals, add them at locations that may not exist currently, backplates behind the traffic signal to make them more visible, and things like that. In the realm of design, a plan development process basically makes it a lot easier for everyone who is doing design services for the agency to follow that process and standardize their standard details and specifications. It makes it consistent. Text plan development process, PDP. Some of the agencies reference those. There was a little bit of cited experience in the past with some agencies finding it difficult to specify certain products that they use on their traffic signals. Whenever it's a TxDOT-led project on a TxDOT facility that TxDOT has a project to design a signal, but eventually they're going to get the keys and start operating that signal as the city, whatever agency. So facilitating that interagency coordination, having that committee of folks to be able to communicate at a traffic engineer and signal technician level would be able to help with that. That's policy recommendation 3. So that would just help each design of new traffic signals and infrastructure go more smoothly. In general, staffing was adequate, but everyone cited that more staff would be better. They found it difficult to find good signal technicians, to find staffing for traffic engineers and that sort of thing. Many agencies are kind of on that cusp where it's difficult to have quite the critical mass to have a full-time traffic engineer dedicated to the traffic management center and whatnot. Training was heavily impacted by COVID and everyone going remotely, so there was a lot of interest in picking that back up. And the TxDOT Waco district has noted in their plans to want to incorporate local agencies as parts of their training. So it would be great. That would be a great recommendation to partner with TxDOT to host more operations and maintenance trainings for all the agencies that own and operate traffic signals in the region. And then finally, funding. So HSIP, Highway Safety Improvement Program, is where you see quite a bit of this type of work being able to be created if it's a safety-related project. And 10% of that is reserved for off-system projects as well. So off-system not being on the TxDOT state highway system. CMAC funds are not available in this area, and the ATC and VLC, all that, and it's low likelihood that those would fund these because these are going to be much larger projects. So one of the recommendations we had was maintaining a list of signal projects that are kind of a little bit of a wish list, and as funds might become available, project slides around like we were talking about earlier, some of these smaller projects for the $50,000, $100,000 range that could have a high safety. Could be a good thing to have around to be able to fund as you're able. And category 8 funding for safety-related tasks is another opportunity that could be utilized more heavily within the region to move some of these projects. So that was a quick gauntlet of all the recommendations that we had. I'll entertain questions, and also if you have access to the full report as well. And my contact information is here if you have a further question at a later time.
Well, thank you. Any questions on the study? Is it been posted to the website?
The full report is on our website, and I'll send this presentation out in the follow-up email. So, and I can link that too.
Not to put you on the spot, but is the Safer Streets for All, is that a possible funding mechanism outside of HCF and the other cat?
It is, and a lot of that came out after this study, so we can maybe potentially add a little brief amendment there. That grant process is ongoing now, but Safe Streets for All, yes, it's a potential option.
Judge, I think as long as it's identified in your comprehensive plan that you guys are going to work on, just like we are, as long as it's identified, those should be eligible projects for future funding. So. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you all. Appreciate it.
All right. Moving right along. Agenda. All right, agenda item 9, James's favorite time, regarding public input received through August 2022. If you'll see in your packet, we actually do have comments in here. And I will let everybody read those. A couple of pretty significantly written comments. James did reply to everybody we received comments from and let them know that these comments will be presented to the tax policy board. With that, I'll turn it over to James if he has anything additional to add.
The one comment was an email we received a few weeks ago from someone about Chaparral Road. It's quite extensive. And then the other was from a gentleman in Copperas Cove about the US 190 project, I believe, which that's y'all are text on the business 190 project. So 2 emails. Sharing them with
Tyrannical plan.
The same guy. It made.
yes, that's all.
Any questions or comments on the comments?
I just it's all right.
Like I said, when we do receive these, we let people know if they've been emailed to us that they'll be included and presented to the tax and policy board. All right. Nothing else on the comments. We'll move to agenda item 10, which is any member comments. Anybody have any comments for the tax?
I'll speak up. I don't print on the line and all. That's for the department here. We do have our Cat 9 transportation alternatives call coming up.
For the district?
Yes.
Okay.
So Brendan, if you have any words to say on that, feel free.
No, I don't. Can you guys hear me?
Doesn't look like we were able to. Is it?
Can you hear me?
It could be technology.
Hello, hello.
Yeah.
Reach out to Brendan if you have any questions on that.
Sorry, Brendan, we can't hear you. I think it's a technology error today.
Oh. All right. Any other member comments?
I'll reach out to Brad and get some information from him and include it in the follow-up, just so everyone has that. Okay.
Any other member comments? Is there anything online? Oh, member comments? Good. Okay, thank you, Brandon.
Yeah, I'll include that in the follow-up email.
All right, seeing no more comments, we'll move to agenda item 11. This meeting is adjourned at 10:25. Thank you all.
This conference will now be recorded.